Welcome to Pyramid One World Radio Network. You can call in and talk to our hosts by dialing 60547257766, then dial the access code 60860 hash, and you're ready to be part of a worldwide movement to educate everyone listening to these shows. Let's begin dialing.
This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation. Dr. Randall George Nozawa welcomes the world to his new show right here on Pyramid One Radio Network called Be the Change. First, a little bit about your host. Dr. Randall George Nozawa had played high school football in Honolulu and later became a professional bodybuilder. When he moved to Washington, the muscle-bound Nozawa enrolled at University of Washington's dental school, studied hard, and faithfully graduated. Dr. Nozawa became to be a prominent dentist, and years later he opened a handful of dental clinics, which now, through his work, could finally afford the lifestyle he had always wanted. Then a tree came crushing down and foiled his best laid plans. This was one of two life-changing tragedies that changed his life forever. During his resulting and prolonged stay in the hospital, and as he took a year to learn to walk again, his wife Deborah hired temporary dentists to keep the clinics open. Yet, when the businesses performed poorly under the temporary staff, family finances plummeted. And with all his medical bills accumulating, Nozawa felt he needed to return to work, but could not. That's when Nozawa realized he could not perform his dental duties to the high standard he was accustomed. The accident took away his sight, and even with assistant devices for the seeing impaired, he felt his dentistry skills were now substandard, which made him have to close his clinics to so many patients that loved him so much and the work he did for all of them. Then again, tragedies hit again, and this time he came close to death. Dr. Randall George Nozawa, now blind, got caught in the middle of a couple's domestic violence incident on one fateful night. The heat of the domestic violence, Dr. Nozawa was shot in the head from 12 inches away. The crime shocked and rocked the community of Gig Harbor, where it occurred, and received its due amount of attention in the area newspapers. Looking back on it, Nozawa said that getting shot feels like thumping your forehead with the heel of your hand. It does not hurt. He did not yet know that the bullet had shattered and bore a hole through his palate, destroying molars, nearly severing his tongue, and destroying his only eye. All he knew was that he could not see, and he was bleeding. Dr. Randall George Nozawa, after all his pain and enlightenment and enlightenment due to near-to-death experiences. Now, the doctor is here for the world and you, the audience, to learn, listen, and awaken. Some of the subjects he's going to touch on are the 8 pillars of wellness, which are nutrition, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relationships with self, others, with the environment, management of toxins, finances, many of the new technological advances that have brought many solutions and conveniences, but also more new problems. And sadly, greed, power, and sex. Food that's no longer fresh from the earth and our water has been hijacked and contaminated by the big agricultural businesses or chemical companies like the ones we know about, and poisoned with herbicides or insecticides and antibiotics, petroleum products stored in chemical bleaching plastics filled with illness-causing GMOs and used as a political fodder to control humankind, infecting us with diseases and making us beholden to the pharmaceutical criminal racket. Combine the enormous stresses of earning an income, inactivity because of work requirements, and travel, the toxins building up in our bodies, divine gifted bodies, and sliding further down a sinkhole of hopelessness and helplessness. Humankind is suffering, and dying. Call the doctor today on his shows. Talk to the doctor. Listen to a show that will probably be a #1 daytime listening show on or before the year 2020, I predict. With great respect, it is Pyramid One Worldwide Radio Network's honor to introduce Dr. Randall George Nozawa. There he is.
Oh, my favorite time of day. Absolute favorite time of day. Well, I get to spend it with you, Bob, and my very special guest here, and to share our lives with this massive Pyramid One audience, 138 countries, you know. Well, you already know that. But I'm very grateful for that, for people tuning in. Today is a special episode because the person I'm interviewing, actually, Bob, you introduced him to me. You had sent me an article that was something like, the bankruptcy of America. And I said, well, I already know America's bankrupt. I already know that. So, and I was reading it. It was so well written. And I did not know this all started back during the Lincoln presidency. And and at the end, the guy who wrote it, Patrick Herbert. I go, well, who the heck's this guy? And he had written a little bit like a one-line thing about himself there, that he had undergone a spiritual awakening. I go, oh, well, that's interesting to me, okay? Because I already know America's bankrupt, but I want to know more about this guy and, his peek into that invisible world. And as we exchanged emails and we spoke over the phone, the one word that came to mind or came into our conversation was synchronicity, meaningful Kodesh incidences. There's all these incidences that are happening all over the world. Many of them are thoughts, are actions, and things of that nature. A lot of them happen at the same time. So to think it's a coincidence. Well, meeting him was not a coincidence, and it is meaningful. And hey, I beat a bullet, and I should be dead. I'm not, and I'm so grateful to even be here and get your attention, Bob. And I haven't got my own show, and I'm pretty happy about that. But Patrick Herbert came into my life, and because I wrote to him, and I said, this is a guy that I want to get to know. This is a guy that needs the world to know more about him, because not only a writer, researcher, journalist, he has become spiritually awakened. And as I met him and as I got to know him, I said, I've got to name this show Unconditional Love and Awakening to Truth, because this is him. And I think that our audience, the people in the world, want to awaken to truth, because we are so suffering now, and pain is chronic suffering, and all I have to do is read the newspaper. It's everywhere. But with Patrick Herbert, when you listen to this guy, what you're going to find out is where he's come from, his courage to look into that invisible world, to feel unconditional love, and to be awakened to truth. So, Patrick, welcome. Take it away.
Thanks. I really appreciate being on the show today. It's been wonderful to meet you guys and interact with you. And thank you for that very complimentary introduction. I couldn't have asked for anything more pleasant to hear. Thanks. As you were saying, yeah, my life was, my spiritual awakening was very interesting. For one, before it happened, I didn't really have any idea about what a spiritual awakening was. I didn't know anything about, there's a lot of things that are said in the New Age movement about, an elevation in frequencies and, mankind rising up and such. But I didn't pay any attention to that. I was too busy being a software engineer and just really what had happened in my life is I had gotten addicted to pharmaceuticals, terrible, awful pharmaceuticals. I allowed myself to be convinced that I had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression. Nobody put a gun to my head and told me to take these pills, of course, so it's something that I was fairly convinced of it. They can be very convincing in this country, as the typical problem solution, where when I grew up in the 90s, depression was a cool thing. So that was one way they got us all hooked. We had figures like Kurt Cobain, who we all idolized. So, and he was depressed, and they made his depression, they kind of made it like, it was cool, and everybody wanted to be depressed, I guess, in a sense. So it was very easy. They had created these pharmaceuticals to have a market and they needed a market for them to sell them. So at any rate, I became hellaciously addicted to these pharmaceuticals for about 15 years, and they dominated my life. I firmly believed that they made me a better programmer, and that's just how you can convince yourself these things. Like the career drug, Adderall, as they call it. So, but anyways, my mind, my body, and my spirit at some point are no longer able to deal with this. And I start basically going down the tubes really fast. And that's when a lot of miraculous synchronicities began to happen to me. Now, I say this is interesting because, like I said, I had no prior awareness of me being in service to anything called an awakening. So I basically had to become awakened and get a crash course on what was going on. And as I've told you, Doctor, the story is quite. I mean, they pulled back the veil tremendously. I got to see what reality is all about. I got set on this path. I got set straight, of course, and then I got set on this path, and it's been a phenomenal adventure. I can't even. I mean, we're talking about someone who was down and out, and kind of a story similar to yours, not as intense, of course, but you can understand where I'm coming from. And of course, I had suffered the lung collapse, and also during all of this, and they said that I had some very awful lungs, that they had conditions that they hadn't seen since 1978. And then, of course, I'm fine now. I recover from that and everything like that. But I'm just thinking, like I'm sure you were at some point, it's like, what? Wow, what's going on here? Like, why? I'm young. Why is my whole life being derailed? And it was for this awakening. So it's pretty interesting. Of course, my wife had a lot to do with that, big time. Like I had said in the story that I'd sent you, the story that I'd post on my blog, when I saw my wife for the first time, I hadn't felt that way about anybody. And I'm talking celebrity, supermodel, it doesn't matter who it was. I had never felt like every cell in my body was resonating, wanted this woman. Every part of my being, I just wanted to know everything about her. And what was incredible about the night we met is that she had picked two of my most favorite songs, which are Even Flow by Pearl Jam and Plush by Stone Temple Pilots. And I have been listening to those songs since I was 14 years old. So you have to understand that. And she was 21 when we met, and I was 32. And how a 21-year-old would come to pick these songs from the early 90s. She was only maybe 3 or 4 when these songs came out. So, and I had asked her when Plush was playing, I walked up to her, I finally had the nerve to, and I told her she had picked my 2 favorite songs, and she had told me, well, they just came to her randomly. And then from our meeting, it's just been one huge synchronicity after the next. Eventually, the most amazing things started to happen in 2014. In 2014, there was like a contest going on, or a competition. It was almost like a tug of war between positive forces and negative forces. I'm supposed to awaken to be in service to this awakening in the service as a conduit. Of course, I don't have any knowledge about this, but we were getting psychically attacked, and I knew it had something to do about the love that my wife and I have for each other. It's interesting because Carol Clark, the seer that comes recommended by David Icke, had told me that she had never seen a love like Rochelle and I's on this plane. And I can tell you definitively that unconditional love is the absolute most important concept on this plane. Absolutely, in every way, shape, and form. And it has the potential, literally, to churn and translate, to turn everybody's lives around, to change everything for the better. And, of course, we're spoon-fed a lot of division, divide and conquer. Typically, I mean, this has been going on since governments were conceived. Constantly made to fight against each other, constantly poisoned with toxic pharmaceuticals, toxic food, toxic this and that. And just by this cabal of people who control also international banking and everything that they attempt to do to keep us in a low vibrational state of unawareness. And we've got people who are walking around out there going to, the work, buy, consume, die, as David Icke calls it, cycle. People going around in a hypnotic trance, just fighting and not really, it's unbelievable. So it's, and I was one of them at one point. My level of awareness before my awakening was so low, and this might have had to do with the pharmaceuticals, or it might have had to do with archons. It might have had to do with a whole bunch of different things. But, and of course, I was experienced in that state a lot of negativity. A lot of negative things would happen to me constantly. But once I became awakened, and once I met Rochelle, and I started to remember unconditional love, and then to discover that her and I had incarnated to be in service to this awakening, it's just been remarkable. My life has changed in the most amazing of ways. It's hard to sometimes put into words, but to go back to 2014, and this was the most synchronistic part of my awakening, and there's a tug of war going on between negative forces and myself, and we're being attacked. We're being psychically attacked. We're being attacked from people, strangers, people in our family, coming through just complete chaos. As this is going on, I start searching for things because I think it really became intense. There was, as Carol had said to me, they did not want me to awaken. The unseen, the inorganic beings, as they're called. And I'm not sure how far down the rabbit hole you guys want me to go, but I'll go ahead. I don't know if you know about archons and the inorganic beings, but we have all heard of demons, the jinn, So the things are going absolutely crazy. My life is, and I'm still, of course, on Adderall while this is rolling out. But information starts flying to me from everywhere, and I start searching for stuff. And every time I would search for whatever it was, I would get led to this gentleman named Tom, who had a site called Montauk, and also Carissa, who has a site in 2 worlds. That's in with the number 2 worlds.net. And my search results would go between either being direct words of advice on a white screen with black text, no matter what I search for, or articles from Tom. And now when I read these articles from Tom, they were like the greatest pieces of information I had ever read in my life. That every single word, I latched onto every single word and everything that he had written, and it was information that I just needed, and I was desperate for. I downloaded all of his articles, printed them all out. I would share them with everyone. So this is going on at the same time, and I've got books that are coming away. I'm going through his reading list, and I'm also led to the band 311. Right. This was the coolest part of this whole process was, I'm led to a book by Louis Monroe. He's a member of the International Academy of Consciousness, and they study conscious out of body behaviors, near-death experiences, things like that. So I'm led to a book by him, and it says that at the age of, and I'm 35 years old, at the age of 35, one begins their existential task. So, okay, existential task, that sounds great. I don't even know what that is, so I'm still reading it, and I'm also reading that Rochelle and I are an evolutionary duo. I'm slowly starting to put pieces of the puzzle together over here, and I'm starting my essential task. So anyways, one of the bands I listened to, 311, we're in the car one time, and my wife leans over to me, and a voice in my head says I should look up the new 311 album, and I tell my wife, look up the new 311 album. She does, and she looks it up, and she reads me the list of songs, and one is called Existential Hero. So we play it. We're kind of, that got my attention. We're in a little bit of a state of shock because of this existential task stuff. So we start playing the songs, and the lyrics just blow my mind because the chorus, it says, hold on, before we're gone, we have lots to do, but time with you keeps on flying, and I keep on blowing a fuse. There you go. The funny part about your, and then it says, unseen, your face in the screen, I feel your attention dividing, but this is worth more than the news. Like I told you, by trade, I was a software engineer, so I was constantly having my face in the screen. Now, I'm not sure if this song was written for me, but it sure as heck seemed like it at the time. And there were other songs that they had made with more lyrics, but eventually I become awakened. I apologize. I jumped ahead of myself a little bit. I should go back to when I started getting visions when Rochelle and I first got together, and I had gotten 4 visions. And those visions were what led me to search for certain things in the articles. One of them was reality creation. I saw a hand with a paintbrush painting the sky, and I got the intuition that you paint your own future, right? You create your own reality. So eventually down the line, I start searching for this, and I get sent articles by Tom as search results, and I start, reading those up, and other visions, stuff like that. So it's just, it's neat because at the end of the day, after I finally talked to Carol Clark and Stacy Codino, who was the shaman, and they told me that I'm a conduit and stuff like that, it was like, oh, wow. So this spiritual awakening thing is actually real. It's real, and it's happening. And then after all this happens, then the world literally starts descending. And this is around 2014, 2015, 2016. Everything starts going into chaos, which I believe is actually part of the plan. So, because if you've noticed, with everything that's going on right now, everybody's got their heads into something. They're looking up. We're being shaken out of our comfort zones right now, all of us. No matter your political disposition, you're being shaken out of your comfort zone to get you to look around a little bit. And what's one thing that's happening? If you look out there, when you see things like Jeffrey Epstein dying, and you see other events happening, everybody's becoming a conspiracy theorist. So as this is happening, and people are starting to research, and and when it comes to like people like Epstein, you've got the people in the Trump camp are wanting to blame the people in the Clinton camp, and you got the people in the Clinton camp or wanting to blame the people in the Trump camp for this relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, who's in the middle. So what's happening is everybody's starting to research, who's this Epstein guy? What's going on here? What's this all about? What's it, So I had figured out that I might as well just jump into the fray and create a blog and start putting down everything that I know and that I've researched and the things I've been led to and the things that I've seen. And then all of a sudden, everything starts going viral. So it's been really fascinating. And then, of course, I ran into you, Doctor, and which has been a wonderful synchronistic experience. It's very nice to meet someone who's into exactly the same things I am, as well as, and I've been in touch with Tom, and Tom has been, Tom's an incredible guy. The guy's like one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. And to me, Tom, who's actually going to be calling into the show, Tom is a lifesaver, because Tom and Carissa, if it wasn't for their articles that were the top search, so somebody out there, in some capacity, felt that the writing that Tom had done and Carissa had done was the absolute utmost important thing I needed to read and had delivered it as such, and it ended up saving my life. So one of the things I want to do, one of my things I'm really looking forward to, is potentially, using my experience to get more people to look at Tom's material, Carissa's material, and of course their own material and stuff. Do their own, seek their own lines of research. And I mean, like I had said, I'm like, Rochelle and I are literally living proof of this awakening being real, and the things that we had learned about unconditional love. Now, it's interesting. One of the miracles Rochelle and I had experienced, and I figured I might as well talk about this, is people have called it soul gazing. I didn't know if there was a name for it. We were one time looking at each other while this was during the time the visions were going on, and we were looking at each other from across a room, and both of the shapes of our faces started to change rapidly. We're staring at each other. We were seized, so we couldn't move. And as we're staring at each other and this is happening, we're both mind blown. We're both sitting there watching and experiencing each other's past life incarnations together at the same time. So after that happened, and it happened over the course of a split second, I just kind of was staring at her with my mouth open, and she was too. And she said at first, she goes, "Your face just changed." And I said, "Your face just changed also." So there were these events that her and I had shared, big ones. I mean, this was kind of a small one in the scheme of some of these miracles and interventions, if I may, were quite big, and they were quite mind blowing. And there's not a whole lot of people out there that would believe it off the bat. I used to talk about it nonstop. I'd be like, I had seen the Eye of Ra with Rochelle in the sky when we became awoken, and it was shaped with clouds, and we saw it clear as day. But no one in a million years is going to believe that, and and other things like that had happened. So it was it's quite remarkable. And of course, the most amazing thing is that with this is the most, like, well, actually I lost track there, but one of the most incredible things about all this too is that it, with all the technology and everything that we got, we're all able to, we can now reach out at any point in the world and share all this stuff and share all this knowledge and connect with each other. And like, I'm able to get in touch with Tom, Tom's able to get in touch with me. We're able to meet over the internet. We're able to connect now. And in all, one of the most fascinating things about this is this was something that, I don't know if you've heard of Philip K. Dick, or he wrote a book called The Exegesis of Philip K. Dick. And he was a screenwriter. He had done Jacob's Ladder, the movie, and some other famous movies. Anyways, he wrote a book called The Exegesis of Philip K. Dick, and in it, he said that those of us who would become awakened or as wanderers would start reaching out to each other over the media, and that's actually what's been happening. So this is just, it's utterly fascinating to be sitting here right now talking to you, literally living synchronistic one moment after the next. And I just got a message that Tom is here, so I'd definitely love to bring Tom onto the show right now, for sure.
I can do that.
Sorry to go on and on over here, but
no, go right ahead. Tom, go ahead.
Hey, it's an honor to be here. Thanks a lot for having me on to discuss the amazing journey that Patrick has had. And, it's really great being here.
Yeah, that couldn't possibly have been done without Tom. So that's the thing. And this gentleman over here, like, when I first started to read his stuff, I'm like, who is this guy? This guy is like the world's best genius. Who is he? Like, everybody needs to know this information. I'm thinking, because like I said, I didn't have any concept of an awakening before it happened. So I'm thinking I'm the only one who's onto this right now, And I still hadn't been led to David Icke. So I'm reading Tom's stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I can't believe the world is like this. I need to set all this stuff. But eventually I would get led to David Icke. And turns out, yeah, there is a spiritual awakening going on. And here we are. So yeah, the one thing that I would love is for people to go and look at some of the material this gentleman Tom has produced. It's remarkable. His dedication to this awakening is unparalleled to anything that I've ever seen. And the fact that this gentleman produces material that he releases on the internet for the purposes of all of us to become aware is awesome. And just like you, Dr. Randall, I would like to say, and you, Bob, too, as well, a heartfelt thanks to those of you out there who have been, doing this day after day, working hard at getting the word out and raising awareness. I'm a newcomer to this game. Like I said, I didn't even know about a spiritual awakening until it hit me. And now I'm trying to do what I can and write these articles and put them out there. So I'm very happy that Tom is here.
I was just going to say that, just like yourself, and that when it came to awakening 9 years ago, I knew nothing. Yes, I was one of those NDEs that came back from the other side and came back with a different perspective on life, or what life is supposed to be, or how happy you're supposed to be, and weren't. And I said, well, okay, what do I have to do to make myself happy? Ta-da. 9 years later, and here we are talking to each other. My background in music is 39 years, and it winds up on a radio. On the other hand, like David, I've spoken to David too. I mean, things that the world is serving up to us are all a fallacy. It's completely backwards. And I would say some swear words too, but hey, listen, I don't do that. But the idea of the thing is, every single thing that we're watching, listening to, smelling, tasting, touching is all wrong. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, and I'm double your age, when I was a kid, everything was organic. And the word organic didn't even exist. You know why? Because everything was organic. It all came out of the ground, no poisoning, no Monsanto, no anything. You ate it. That was it. It was healthy. It made you strong. I mean, at my age, I'm supposed to be having this, that, and the other malady and everything else, and I don't. Why? Because I was raised on good stuff. And that's where I came from. Today, it's a marketing trick. Organic. Good. We'll raise the price of everything you touch by $2 because it says organic. And then for it to be organic, the farmers and everything have to go through all kinds of hell just to get the little stamp on the organic food that says, organic, which is the craziest thing in the whole world, because so what? If it came out of organic, unpoisoned ground, what's the matter with it? It's got to be inspected to see if it's okay. And then you got two farmers, one next to the other, the one farmer down the block, and that's 5 miles down, and that sprays the Monsanto stuff all over his farm. The wind blows all down to your end. Plus, that same poison goes down into the ground, into the aquifer. You then take the well water in your farm and you water your plants with that has the poison in it from the guy down the block. So what are we doing? We're poisoning ourselves over and over and over again. So everything that you said, everything that I saw on your website, Ned, you're spot on.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's true. One of the things they don't do is they might genetically engineer this fruit to so that it could withstand this onslaught. And it's not just the slight. I mean, we're talking they're pouring gallons, and they wear hazmat suits when they apply these insecticides and pesticides. And this is on. You see tons of famous pictures out there where you see these guys in these giant hazmat suits spraying the food that you eat. So it's all genetically modified organisms, right? And this pesticide's getting absorbed into the soil, and it's getting absorbed into everything. You're drinking water. You're not genetically modified to withstand it, but the fruit is. So, and like you say, that's what I had called the ugly hand of eugenics. Why is it that these healthy alternatives, why are they more expensive? What's the deal with that? We're talking their costs must be less. I mean, if we're organic, they're not necessarily spending a fortune on seeds, and they're not necessarily spending a fortune on insecticides and pesticides. So what is the reason for these costs, And it gets even trickier because, at least in my experience, you go to the grocery store and they love putting the big sign that says organic, and you have no idea that's true or not, what that falls under, right? Because they literally they put it above their entire produce section, and it's not all organic.
Of course.
So it gets a little ridiculous. It's got to really be smart, and that's the thing that really frustrates me, because it's not fair. At least I personally don't think for people to I mean, we come into this world and we're taught that we're taught to respect authority. We're taught all this. We're taught to trust, and we're taught this, and then we go out into life and we trust that the food that we're going to eat is healthy, and it's not. It's actually poison for the purposes of pretty much killing you, essentially. It's that's what I think, anyways. I when you had sent me the Georgia Guidestones, I mean, I know the depopulation agenda going on, and the 500 million number on there, written in how many languages? But
the American standard, what's the Stonehenge?
Yeah, the American Stonehenge.
Yeah, you're right.
So anyways, it's just remarkable. And you have, like you literally have to have a degree if you're in the know and you want to find decent food to eat. You got to know which labels to look for, like the non-GMO verified and this and that. And even if it is non-GMO, that just means that it's a non-genetically modified seed. That doesn't mean that they're not spraying,
Right.
pesticides on it. So the only way you can truly win in this game is by self-sustainability, taking control of your own produce, growing your own fruits and your own vegetables. And, then you have control over everything. You know exactly what you're eating. I know that's easier said than done for the most part. A lot of us don't have the time because we're so busy with the bump and grind. Yeah, I mean, it's insane, and it doesn't stop there. They've got the vaccines, and the vaccines, of course, are toxic, and now they're making them mandatory. So it's just, yeah, and ultimately, this entire reality that we are all experiencing is an illusion. But for a lot of people that don't realize that or know that, it's very real to them, and my heart goes out to these people, especially because, man, our fellow people are being hammered, and it's brutal. And for those of us who are empaths like Dr. Randall, we feel it. We start to feel it. We can't, we start to feel their sickness. We start to feel their hurt. We start to feel those things, and it gets difficult sometimes even going into public spaces. Since I've been awakened, I've been very sensitive to energy. At first, I always thought it was me until I started to learn that it's not coming from me, that it's coming from other people. But anyways, I don't.
Speaking of energy, I think Tom has something that he wanted to interject somewhere in there.
Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if you got any specific questions you want me to answer, I can.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I could see you jumping from here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you had any specific questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Well, what?
Oh yeah, no, he thought that you had something to say, I think.
Yes.
Oh no, it must have been a confusion. I was just listening with rapt attention. I mean, this is a pretty fascinating show.
There you go.
So, all right. So yeah, and we got that, and like I said, eugenics, and you've got this agenda going, and we know about it. Depopulation. Nobody wants to believe you about it, which is wonderful. It's funny with my own family. I've been talking to them about this for years, and now that they actually are, so that's why I said it's funny to see that everybody's becoming a conspiracy theorist now, because now that the world's going into chaos and all this stuff is happening, and all this talk of an awakening is happening, now they're starting to listen a little bit. So that's fun, and also so it's just been a very exciting time, and yeah, that article on the bankruptcy, that was pretty funny. That was a complete out of nowhere, gone viral thing. I put that article together. I was on the phone with a gentleman who had called in. We were talking about banking. And while I was talking to him, I thought, well, maybe I'll just publish it now and work on it a little bit later. So I hit the publish button, and then the next thing I know, the next morning, I see it everywhere, like literally. And I've got all these emails and all this stuff on my show. So that totally, completely out of nowhere did that go. And I know Dylan from Waking Times. So, I sent him an email. I was like, holy crap. And you posted that, and that it went viral. I was like, I just got invited on a radio program by Dr. Randall. So anyways, yeah, I mean, it's, and another person who has an incredible amount of material is David Icke. And it's nice to see David Icke doing well now. And they've got a documentary about him and stuff of that nature. I think there's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road, because he can get a little controversial, but the things that he talks about definitely need to be said. But in terms of the when it comes to esoteric information, and when it comes to that kind of material, Tom is I think personally, based on, and now when this awakening happened, I just spent doing everything I could to read as much as I could. And I've always been a big reader. So, and I hit up his recommended reading list, all of his articles. I'd print them out, I'd share them. I'm kind of doing the same thing now over the radio. I'm putting a spotlight over on Tom, so that people will go over to his site and read these articles and become awakened. Because yes, you do create your own reality with your thoughts. Yes, thinking positive is important. I mean, that part is real easy, because you have to consider the words harmony and disharmony. If you've got harmony is constructive. Harmony is building. You could build things with harmony. Harmony feels good. Harmony is pleasant. Harmony is forward thinking, and harmony is evolution. Spiritual evolution would support harmony. Disharmony is not. Disharmony is destructive. It's the most destructive force in the world. We have disharmony, dis-ease, all these things, and they all come down to the same concept. It's all negativity, negative thinking. Now, our worlds, our inner worlds are that's where we reside most of the time, let's say. So, and your perceptions are ultimate, and your perception of the world is ultimately super important. So rather to have when you have a negative impression of the world, or you have very negative perceptions, everything you do is tainted with that negativity. If you're angry, you go out, someone sends you a text message that says hi. Do you read that as a pleasant hello? No, you're in a bad mood. You read that as a real negative thing. So it's a disharmonious state to be in a negative condition on the inside, and it is destructive, and it right down to your cells, literally. So, in positive thinking, your perception of the world is lovely. You're thinking positive. Every time a message comes across or somebody talks to you, it's lovely. Hey, how you doing? This is great. I feel good. Everything is great. And our perceptions of, and that ties into reality creation in the sense that, they say, you want to keep your mind positive, especially when it comes to manifestation, so that you can manifest positivity and goodwill towards yourself. And also so you can see the world positively and feel good. And it's remarkable how difficult that concept can be to some people, because as Tom will say on the, introduction to his page, people do cling to their misery as identity. And as you, Dr. Randall, with your studies of the subconscious mind, we dig trenches in our minds. We dig with our thinking. If we're constantly thinking negative, we're constantly digging a negative trench. And we end up being deep down in that dark, dirty, negative trench. And that's what all our thinking is. And that's how we see the world, and it takes a lot of work to fill up that trench and start digging positive ones. But it's totally worth it, completely. If you enjoy, if you want to enjoy feeling peace and at peace and harmonious. So, and Tom has some really excellent articles on reality creation, because there is the New Age movement, which is talks about some of these stuff, but I think kind of hijacks and can be disinformation and a lot of times. But Tom has a very awesome articles on reality creation, because he has a very grounded view on it and a very practical view that is based on all of his other studies. And I know this because I tore up those I literally read, I studied, I would highlight areas of his articles, and then I would create notes, and I would put them all over my house. At one point, I took a Sharpie and just started writing all over my windows. Things like, that a shift in perception is the way that you see the positive. You just change your perception. It's that simple. So something is going on in the outside world, and you're getting really upset and you're angry about it. All you have to do is center yourself and find the positive, and there's a positive in everything. And a lot of times, I guess, for the most part, we get, the three of us on this call right here have all been shoved into those circumstances where we have had to find the positives. We didn't have a choice, It was either find the positives to our circumstances, or that's it, we're done. So it's just great to have such a resource that's accessible like Tom's, and also Carissa. And she's got a remarkable amount of articles out there that are very practical, very lesson oriented, and very descriptive. And Tom and Carissa know each other very well, and so they, their work complements each other. But I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for us to stay positive in our inner worlds, and just think harmoniously, and how the benefit that we ourselves get from this. It's not so much about being a pleasant person. It's great to be a pleasant person, yes, of course, but if your inner world isn't pleasant, that really, you're just, it's not really going to matter much. So you want to enjoy definitely being pleasant and positive and such. I'm sorry, I tend to go on and on a little bit, and I do apologize.
Well, Dr. Randall, Dr. Randall, he's ready, and he's sitting here. I thought Tom was jumping up and down. This guy, I'm watching him.
No, I love listening to you guys talk there. Now, Tom, with all the stuff that you've learned and you've put to print and what you're trying to teach, here you have this, pupil that you've perhaps tutored and all. Now, is this the kind of reaction or response you want from all your readers or listeners or people in your audience? What do you want to convey? And, fill us in more about your relationship with Patrick here, because, he's on the show for a reason. And it's because of more than just the article he wrote, but that small thing, Spiritually Awakened. I go, wow, I got to meet this guy. And then I learned of you. So can you speak more on that?
He meant Tom, so
okay,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think bottom line, what it is that, I mean, we all know that this world to a large degree is an illusion, right? That it's not what the mainstream physics and mainstream consensus reality tries to portray it as. So then the question is, if this reality is an illusion, then what is actually real? And in my experience, what is real is consciousness, our own individual sentient spirits, which are ultimately immortal. And if we are immortal, if we are timeless, then obviously most of us, well, a lot of us, in some way or another, knew each other before even coming here. And I think that's the case for a lot of people that are here. In some way, we are all a spiritual family who have had, closer relations to each other than we might have had with other people who, are more like distant in terms of their spiritual network and what they're involved in. But someone like Patrick and, a lot of people who have contacted me over the years, and I would presume yourself too, Bob and Dr. Randall and all that. I mean, we seem to be connected in some transcendental way. And the problem is that by coming here into this illusion, so many of us fall asleep, right? I mean, just like with you, Patrick, and the path that you tread with the pharmaceuticals. So there has to be a way for members of a team to trigger each other into awakening in whatever way is possible. So that's how I view it. I view it more like awakening members of the spiritual family more so than a teacher-pupil relation. I think it's more of a form of mutual help. And the reason why I say that is because if someone isn't ready to awaken, you can still force them to emulate awakening by making them memorize your material, by making them study everything that you've written, and in a way where they're just kind of mechanically memorizing it and not really integrating it internally. So I think what's happening with real teachings and real learning is it's more a form of remembering and triggering into knowing what you already knew deep down but have just forgotten because you've spiritually fallen asleep in this life. Just because the illusion can be so overwhelming and so oppressive, through being born into a new baby body and getting a new brain and then being put through the entire mechanical educational system and all the programming that comes with it. So that's my intention through my site, which is to put out material that can trigger people into remembering who they are and what they already know deep down. It's just, the minor details that need to be kind of clarified, So I presume that a lot of people that read my site have the experiences and pieces already. It's just that it needs some clarification and perspective in order for them to have that major aha moment, which can be a small aha moment, or it can be a huge, mind-blowing spiritual awakening, as in the case of Patrick. So that's mainly my intention. I'm not here to try to convince the skeptics. I'm here to try to get my spiritual family back up to where they should be.
That's interesting that you say this because, in all honesty, I would not, before my awakening and before the experiences happened, I probably would not have ever gone to, well, at least in my experience, I would not have gone to any of the sites related to this because I was, obviously too busy living out my programming, which is, having a job, going to work, as David I calls it, the work, buy, consume, die cycle. So, but like I said, whenever, that was the neat thing, whenever this started going down and all these miracles started happening and they pulled back the veil for me and I started seeing this and I'm led to all of Tom's material and everything he writes is like, I know this was sympathetic resonation, if you want to call it that. There's I knew this guy from his writing. It just, every word resonated with me. So, and then as him and I had gotten to start talking to each other, there's, like he says, there's a sense of familiarity. So what he is saying about a spirit family is very true. I've experienced that on that end. And also what he's saying about, like there are some people you just can't, you get to get them. I've seen the fake awakening, as he's talking about, where you get people to memorize the things because when I would share his material and I would try to encourage people to snap out of their hypnotic trance and read this stuff, sometimes I would even sit there. I made my nephew, who actually did reach out to Tom at one point, I had my nephew read one of his articles, and I made sure I sat there with him until he finished reading it. He was about 12 years old at the time. Maybe that wasn't very nice, but no, he wanted to read because I would talk to him about what was happening and everything that was going on. So it was, and he did read it, and he got into it a little bit, but then he didn't. He kind of, now he's a teenager, so it's a little bit different. So it's interesting to see, because you kind of see people weaving in and out of it. But I like, for me specifically, I had these huge events that led me down this path and then put me literally on the path. And now my whole entire life is, I'm dedicating it from here on out to try to, just like Dr. Randall does, try to raise awareness. I'm literally just now getting started. My blog is only 3 months old. So, and I'm working towards writing a book. So I'm a little late to the game, but it's good to be here.
Well, no, you arrived on time, actually, and you know what Tom just said was so critical, and that's why I wanted him to hear his voice and to listen to him. But when you mentioned spiritual family, that reminds me of, well, how I met Bob and how I met Patrick, because it is a synchronicity. It's these incidences are meaningful, and just to the story here, I'm in communication and with this one young lady. Her name's I just forgot her name. She just created this incredible docu series called the Love is Medicine Project. I know her name, Rosie Berry. What a cool name, right? And she's going to be a guest on the show in another month. But got incredibly sick, successful real estate person, money coming in, and hers is, I'm going to have a family and have these great kids and great relationships, and she never expected to get sick. And she would go see her Western medicine doctors. Okay, I'm ill. And then they all run all her blood tests. Oh, you're fine. I said, I'm not fine. I'm sick. I can't eat. My hair's falling out. I'm always in pain. And then what they offered her was the same thing. And, you know, similar to the previous show of mine, Pill for an Ill, they'd give her medications. If this doesn't work, take this. If this doesn't work, take this. And then she got so sick, she started to read. And, you know, like you, Patrick, she started to explore. So, you know, life can't be like this. I'm healthy. I'm young. I'm making a crap load of money. I want a great life. And she read. And like you found Tom, she read all kind of natural health type of literature, naturopathic stuff, homeopathic literature, anything on nutrition, anything on spiritual things, events. And what she came down to is, you know, with all what I've read, what is behind the medication, with why a body works, why even on earth, is love. And she started researching that. She goes, wow, love really works. So she created this docu-series, you know, Love is Medicine Project. And I said she's going to be on the show here in about another month. When I listened to you all, and I was right in the middle of that series when I contacted Patrick. I go, you know, I don't know why this fits, but it does. And then you introduced me to David and to Tom. I go, there's some kind of purpose here. It's invisible, and I get the glimpse in this world, and I'm still alive. And that invisible world, thanks to that, I get to meet Bob. I get to meet you, Patrick, and you, Tom. So when you say spiritual family, we are. And on that pragmatic level, in as far as atoms go, we are all those protons, electrons, and neutrons, and we're all the same. We're all the same. You take away our high vibrating skin and the how we look like and all those things where we believe about religion and politics and all that, and if you're a Yankees fan or not, stuff like that, you wipe that all away. We're all the same. And when you look at it, we can prove by science that every single atom glows with some kind of biofluorescence, the light. So darn it, when you hear you are the light, it's not a metaphor, it's real. We are the light. And all that is love, because who put this all together? Not some human, because we're not smart enough. There had to be some kind of infinite intelligence, some kind of source, some kind of infinite wisdom that found out all these things. And you go to medical school, dental school, chiropractic school, any kind of professional school for healing, and you memorize labels: lung, kidney, brain, this or that. And we find out that our brain and our heart and our microbiome, the 100 million, 100 billion, or trillion bacteria that are in there, they can all think and they can all feel because they can all produce neurotransmitters. One of the most famous one that is serotonin, the calm, feel-good one. That's made in all three areas of your body. It's all connected. So it's got to be love, and that's what's all behind it. And I get to meet you, Patrick, and Tom. I hear you say spiritual family. We are one, but we're so lost. And because of someone like you, and someone like Bob with Pyramid One, who's got this massive network, we all get to share our stuff because our world can be a lot better than the way it is. And depending who's in leadership, and you can see that with governments and large corporations and large groups, is that they all tend toward greed. They all tend to separation. They all tend toward eventually remorseless doing and acting upon others for profit. And with a show like this, and with all of you here, we get to do something about that, because I think we humans are a lot better than that. We're a lot better. And we're at a critical point now, because when you look at our environment, it's crumbling. You can all say, well, I don't believe in climate change. Well, okay, you don't have to believe in that. Then why is our world falling apart? Why is everything dirty? Why is everything polluted? Why are we getting so many illnesses? So you go through, and you brought that up too, Patrick, you go through this blame and shame thing. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's not this. It's not that. Whoa, take a step back. Take a step back. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, are we doing loving things to ourselves and to other people? Would you go steal from someone else because, well, you really need it, or they don't need it, or they're really dumb? I'll just make money off of them. If they die, oh well, there's a lot more of them. You see, so here what we're talking about is love as the basis of everything. And I'm so glad you came onto the call, Tom, because what you've done with your work is that you've changed lives, and you've introduced people to a different way of thinking, a different perspective, because we're all caught up in this collective consciousness, especially in the Western world. Make money, get a job, my way, I'm right, you're wrong, win-lose, scarcity. And your message is totally opposite from that, which some people say, oh, that's look at this woohoo guy, let's forget about him. There are some people like that around. He must be a hippie, things like that. And then from there, I get to meet this incredible guy, Patrick, and his wife. And you have a 3-year-old daughter, Alicia. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And then she's going to get a copy of this program. And when she graduates from high school, she can watch all you folks. Say, oh, that's Dad. That's my mom. Okay. And we all progress to somewhere, because we're in this space and time right now, but we're in the here and now. And what you all bring is, to me, just love. And not trying to explain it, but to, give us awareness of that. And, I thank you all for that. But I really enjoyed this show. And, thanks to Bob, he sent me this article to read. And that's how I got to meet Patrick. And that's how I get to meet you, Tom.
No, it's really heartwarming to hear all that. I mean, and the thing we got to remember, though, of course, is that, yes, we are all a spiritual family, and we're all at different levels of awakening. And like I said before, we're here to help trigger each other into returning to who we truly are. And that's not just consciousness, but like you said, it's the energy of love as well. And, different life forms they express love in different ways, right? I mean, if you have, for example, some alien species that doesn't have some of these same neurochemicals that we do, they might experience love in the form of honor and duty and responsibility for the universe at large and maintaining harmony. Whereas we, as mammals, we also have a nurturing, maternal, social element to that. But so the concept of love and consciousness is universal. It's just more like a white light that manifests in different colors when shining through the prism of the human biological, or whatever biological vehicle it is. So to anyone listening, when I'm talking about spiritual family, I'm not excluding anyone at all. I'm not just talking about you, Patrick, and Michelle, and the hosts and everything like that. But it's just so important to remember that we are here all as expressions of a single unified consciousness. as I said before, it's like we're all living a collective dream being dreamt by one single mind, and we are all dream characters of that one single consciousness. So just as you can be in a dream and see another person in the dream, that's ultimately a reflection of your own consciousness. Well, here we are, all reflections of each other and of a higher transcendent energy, and we have to remember that.
Oh, wonderful. Now, how having met Patrick some time ago, what have I know what he said so far, but what's your take on him reading your stuff and other people's work and experiencing his own awakening himself, or looking into that mysterious invisible world? What's your thoughts on him, and from where he was back when to where he is now?
So, from what Patrick has told me about his experiences, there was a lot of hyperdimensional, other dimensional spiritual forces involved. It's almost like when a movie in Hollywood is being produced and it's not going very well, and they bring in a new crew, a new director, and they have to rewrite the script and everything just to get it to fully flow. Well, it's kind of like that, I mean, depending on where a person is in life and where they need to be, and how much time there is to do that, it's going to take either a lot of effort to, get them to that point or not. And in Patrick's case, it's interesting because that's one of the more statistical outliers, in the sense that in order to do that level of awakening that quickly, it required a lot of bending of probability, a bending of reality. So I'm talking about like major synchronicities, visions that are, very, very direct, very, very vivid. And also the whole thing about, the computer screen just turning to a white screen with text on it. I mean, that's something had to actually go into the internet network or the computer or something like that in order to make that happen. So, I mean, I've heard other cases where people have had, it's come close to, let's say, dying on a highway, or, near-death type experiences where the laws of physics themselves were bent in order to keep them from dying. There's so many miraculous case stories. I mean, same as it is with you, Randall. And in Patrick's case, I think it's another version of that. Just a very magical, interesting, inarguable kind, because it involves so many weird, supernatural, improbable elements in order to do that. But in terms of the big picture, I think it's just a form of extreme script writing to accomplish what needs to be done. So which goes to show that, I mean, no matter who you are, where you are, what your current state is, if it's your destiny, if it's divine grace, whatever you want to call it, to awaken at a certain time, things will happen to get you there. So you just have to, keep your heart pure and kind of flow with that when it starts happening, and try not to interfere with the process through too much doubt, too much rationalization, of the material programming that you've had, and just enjoy the ride.
That's wonderful. But one, I like listening to all of you speak here. But what happens? What I've noticed, and just to be alive this long, and to, I was just telling Bob earlier, I beat a bullet, and I don't know why, but that happened. But what I do know is that with all the people on Earth, and there's going to be 8 billion of us very shortly, is that many people will go through an entire lifetime with the herd mentality. Do this, get a job. If someone cuts you off on the freeway, you flip them off and all that, and you go home and you eat lousy food, you yell at your kids, watch TV, go to sleep, and do it all over again. And at the end of your life, you die with regret. And to me, that's a shame, because what I'm gonna speculate is that God doesn't make extra people. We're all meant here for a reason to be here. And yes, there are different levels of awareness, and what you're trying to do is you're patient, and you're trying to teach people as much as you can of what you know, and knowing that everyone kind of awakens at different times, and I would say sometimes not all. With you, with Patrick, and especially with Bob, I learned a lot from him, and thanks to him, we all get to be here. And like I said, it's all for a reason. So what can you say to the audience out there? Because you have Patrick as one of those shining examples of what is possible. To the average person that They still might think that you're woo-woo, kind of things like that. But you know, uh, you know well that all of them deep inside, they have an anxiety, and they have some kind of unfulfilled feeling, and they they don't feel well. They're not happy. They might say they are, but they're not. And they never use the word love, except, I love chocolate. I love time off. I love it when the Patriots win. It's on that superficial level. What do you say to someone like that, where they can take home something when they say, I don't know what's with me. I'm not very happy. I'm not, I'm a little anxious. But that's how life goes, because that's life. That's what I was taught. What do you tell someone like that, just to give them that spark, or show them what is possible, or that possibility thinking? What would you say to someone like that?
Well, I would say that if you've ever had a synchronicity, if you've ever had what seems like the universe kind of winking at you, giving you a sign, then that shows that something like that is possible, right? I mean, that is already a counter example to the entire paradigm that a lot of these, materialistic, nihilistic people out there try to say, which is that, the universe is just a machine, and consciousness is just a product of matter. So, there's no meaning to anything but the meaning that you give it. It's this whole nihilistic attitude. If you've ever had a synchronicity, even just a single one, and you're pretty sure that it was not just, pure coincidence, then that shows that there is a greater intelligence, whether it's your own subconscious working through reality, or whether it's your own higher self, or, some sort of a divine angelic hierarchy working through reality itself to kind of help you out. It shows that there's a possibility there. And one thing you find is that life, pretty much everything that happens in one form or another, is a lesson. It's a lesson to make you stronger, to wake you up to who you really are, to test your spirit, and to help you kind of distinguish between good and evil within yourself and others, between darkness and light, between truth and falsehood. So all these things are things that train consciousness, and they train your heart. Pretty much every day, we are faced with decisions, whether they're large or small, about where we stand on the spectrum of darkness to light. Do we give in to our programming? Do we give in to our ego and our base feelings and all of our limiting beliefs that hold us back in illusory ways? Or do you kind of consult your intuition? Do you consult your reason, your wisdom, your experience, and you really think about it like, if things aren't working, then why aren't they working? And intuitively, yes, you can feel that you're either on the wrong track, or maybe you've been missing something, or most likely there's been something that's been in the back of your mind that you can kind of feel deep down. And if you were truly 100% honest with yourself, you would admit it to yourself, but you just haven't been. You prefer to just kind of drown that out and, turn to distractions and entertainment and food and alcohol and all that kind of stuff to avoid that feeling of confrontation with the honesty and the truth within yourself. Well, I think the sooner you can get to that truth and that honesty and start aligning more with what you truly resonate with 100% from the inside out, top to bottom, the more you'll be led onto a golden path towards a more positive future. And part of that requires analyzing just all the mechanical and negative programs that you're acting on. Because, that is the default state of humans nowadays, which is to be programmed to be products of our genetics and our environment and our society. And so we have this foreign, non-spiritual, non-conscious graft put upon our own consciousness in life. And that's what runs the lives of a lot of people on this planet. So, if you look within yourself, you actually have at least two parts to yourself. You have the negative programming, and you have the actual true resonant, soul-based, spirit-based, love-based part of you, right? So just looking at your own thoughts every day, your feelings, your outlook, think about which one of those come from the negative programming and which one of those are actually true, honest, heart-based views. And the more you can distinguish between the two, between what's false and what's true within you, and align with the true, the more your life as a whole will align with the true and with the good and with the light. So that's the basics that you have to do, because the more you get the two confused and don't even know what's going on inside you, the less you, quote, unquote, know yourself, the more you'll be led down, primrose paths and kind of go down false things that don't lead to, they'll lead to learning lessons eventually. It's just that it takes a lot longer to get to that point, right? So when I talk about life having lots of learning lessons, what that really means is that you can either learn the easy way or the hard way. And the easy way has to do with paying attention to life and actively learning from it, thinking about things, feeling things, tapping into your intuition. Whereas if you were to learn the hard way, that's more like, putting the fingers in the ears and, trying to drown out everything that's going on. And then when that happens, well, life has no choice but to teach you the extremely hard way. And sometimes hardship, it's part of the learning progression that you came here to do. And if that's the case, just have faith. Just have faith, keep your chin up, and just kind of move through it and know that you are an immortal spirit and that nothing can ultimately destroy you. So you'll make it out in the end. You just have to keep your eye on the sky and keep going.
That's beautiful. Thanks for bringing all that up. And I just consider all of you here on the call just leaders, and all of you listening in the audience, you are too. And then it's what you do with all your gifts, and in how you share your love. So Patrick, with all what you've learned, throughout your life as a child, and after meeting Tom, and and David, and meeting your wife, and with your beautiful daughter, where do you go from here, and what do you do?
Well, my plan personally is to try to do everything that I can to help awaken my fellow people to write books. I like to strategize on it, because as we've discussed over this program, is people are at various different levels of awareness, and you really do sometimes you need to take it to a one-to-one level. And I've experienced that with, sometimes it's not, we can't do that conveniently. We can't, if we're addressing an audience of thousands of people, we can't talk to them one-to-one, though I would prefer it. I would love if that would be possible, because that would allow you to strategize for their needs and and stuff like that. But for the most part, all we can really do is just plant the seed, as they say. So I plan on being a gardener.
Well,
a planter of seeds for the subconscious mind.
Heirloom seeds?
Yeah.
Heirloom seeds, yeah, I know. Doctor, it's time for you to button up the show.
Hey, what a wonderful show. Thank you. And I did, I was hoping to meet Rochelle and Alicia, but they didn't make it. But please tell them I said hello, and get a copy of the show to them, especially when Alicia graduates from high school and on her way to college, by the way. Okay, so, well that's my pitch. And get her to know, this is like a like a voice from the past, where she gets to see and meet Tom, see and meet Bob and me, and your progression in life. But thank you so much for a wonderful show, everybody. Our world needs this, and it comes at the right time, because right now, with all the leadership in government, especially who's leading this country here, what that has grown or spawned is people standing up for the right thing, that love comes first, and that will melt away greed, that will melt away ego, hate, and fear. And I'm so glad, Tom, you got to be on the show, and Patrick, was this an honor, and of course, thanks to Bob Charles, we all get to be here. So blessings to you all, and keep doing what you're doing.
Let me just add a little bit to the show. Number one, Tom, how can people get in touch with you? How do we get in touch with your web?
So my website is my website is montauk.net. So that's montalk.net. And on there, I've got free books, awesome free articles. I got free videos on YouTube, and my email's on there too. So if you got any major questions or anything, just email me, and I'll get back to you.
Excellent stuff. I saw Montauk, and I said, "Hey, my whole family lives out in Long Island." so there you go. Really, seriously. Okay, Patrick, what's your website?
Just patrickherbert.org or patrickjosephherbert.com. Yeah, that's about it. Pretty simple. Just my name.org.
There you go.
And if anybody if anybody wants to contact me or reach out to me, or has any questions, please do. I'm more than willing to engage everybody, and I just whatever anybody needs, or any questions they might have of me, please. I'm here. I'm available, and I look forward to it. I would really like to thank you guys, and Tom especially. Tom, I kind of sprung this on him real fast, so I appreciate that he gave the time to call in and everything like that. So thank you so much, and I'm truly honored to have been on the show. So thank you, Dr. Randall and Bob. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
There you go, Dr. Randall. How do we get in touch with you?
Well, through Pyramid One and Bob Charles, of course. But my email is mirabelle.nozawa@gmail.com, mirabelle.nozawa@gmail.com, or my website, drrandallgeorge.com. But please get in touch with me. And if you want to call the show, that'd be really great, or call in. I really enjoy that.
I just want to leave it for everybody that tomorrow, there will be a copy of this show in the audio in the archive. How do you get there? Go to www.pyramid1network.com. Click on the picture of the pyramids. Bingo! You go right over to the landing page, and tomorrow, or the next day, whenever it goes down, because don't forget, this goes to Australia, and in Australia, it's tomorrow. Oops. What we'll do is we will put a copy of this video dead center in the middle of the landing page for everyone to see every time they click on the landing page. It'll be in the archives forever. It'll be on the archives at least 10 to 15 times playing this month. So, what else could you want? Nothing. What do we want to say? We want to say, love everyone. Love yourself. Say, I am.